Hey everyone, welcome to the next weekly update video for the 17th of October. And this one is going to have some positive news in it for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is not the norm. As you'll know, if you watch these regularly, I usually talk about how Microsoft and Asobo have disappointed us. And I do want to make clear that, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video probably should have happened earlier. I'm not going to claim that this is somehow groundbreaking and, Asobo deserve wild acclaim for making the menus accessible and re-enabling keyboard support, which they already broke. I think we have to keep this in perspective. However, we've bashed them a lot, and we have to give credit where credit is due. I think there's this idea that, there's this negativity towards Microsoft Flight Simulator, and people don't want to embrace something that's new, and that's completely rubbish in my opinion. It's completely false. I have always said it's got potential, but it needed to fulfill that potential, and it really depends what you want to do. What I like to do is realistic airliner flying on VATSIM, in events and things like that. Now, did Microsoft, and even now, does it fulfill that user case? No, it doesn't. And that's why, along with communication issues that we've had with Asobo, there's been a lot of negativity. But, like I say, you've got to give credit where credit is due. A lot of this is courtesy of Josh or Orinx. So if you want to see the Sim Update 11 beta, and it is in the beta, so if you want to get these features, you need to be on the beta. If you want to see it in action, you can go to his channel and look at his latest video, because he does a demo of how the menus are working, and I believe loads into an aircraft and a couple of things. So you can see some of that. So yeah, they have fixed the keyboard support, which is a big thing, because you would have had to use a controller, so you can now use the keyboard to navigate through the menus. And you can choose a departure location, which is a step forward from where we were previous. So you can choose your departure location, choose your aircraft and all that good stuff, and load up at a gate. They've even tried, I believe, to do certain things with the tooltips once you're in the aircraft. And some areas such as the, controls, they've made attempts to do certain things, put it that way. Not all those attempts have come off, so especially in areas where there's large list views or a lot of options, I believe there's still issues. So there's still things that they're going to have to change, and it still needs work for sure. It's not complete, but it is a beta, and hopefully by the time Sim Update 11 comes out, that will be fixed. So the other news kind of alongside this is that there's been some discussion about where the pmdgs are at. Of course, 6, 7 and the 800 have been released. We're still waiting on the 900. It's expected within the next month or so, and then pmdg will move on to the 777, and then it will be the 747, and then the 737 MAX. I believe that's their latest development timeline. But there's been some talk about where we're at with TFM. And basically, the SDK is something that we were waiting on, and that is now there. So TFM can do certain things with the PMDGs. There's also a lot it can't do, though, and that is down to the memory block. So the memory block has been something that's been changing frequently as these aircraft are developed, as the PMDGs are developed. And so the FSUIPC library has not fully established their use of the memory block because of this nature that it's been changing. We are hoping that this memory block is now pretty stable, and so the FSUIPC developer will be able to begin fully using this block on the understanding that it's not going to change. That is one solution. The other solution would be for TFM to directly import this memory block, but I guess from my understanding that would probably take longer, and this is coming off the TFM blog, I should say, so if you want to see the blog post, then go there. That is another option, but I think the consensus seems to be, from what I've gathered so far, that we're going to wait for FSUIPC to make use of the memory block and then go about it that way. So we don't know when that will be. So what does this mean? It means that at the moment, whilst you can see, for example, the FMC menu, you can't really go much further than that. You can't use the soft keys on the FMC. You can't use the panels, and there may be incorrect readings of things, state readings that are not working properly, things like that. Speed breaks are a problem. So obviously this is not really flyable from A to B at the moment, but it will be, and it's a step forward. So, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but I know there'll be certain people saying, okay, wow, Declan, are you going to switch to Microsoft Flight Simulator? No, of course not. We've got to put this into perspective. This is not a transition that will be, P3D goes away, Microsoft comes into play, and that's it, especially for blind flight simmers like myself. If you're a sighted person, it's probably easier to say, I'm never flying the 737 on P3D again, I'm only flying it on Microsoft. For us, there's other prerequisites. As I've just mentioned, we have to wait, and we have to make sure everything's stable. I mean, the P3D versions have been meticulously worked on by TFM, and of course we have First Officer, and everything's set up perfectly, and Microsoft is not going to be there yet for us. To run this on Microsoft, if you want to test it, and I should add as a caveat, if you go and buy it, I've just said it won't work properly, so don't expect to buy it and do a full flight and say, why is it not working? But if you do want to play around with it, you will need, of course, the latest TFM. You can get the latest preview and the latest FSUI PC and Sim Update 11 beta, and possibly First Officer Pro will help you out as well. Sorry, not Pro, it's called Next. Got to get that into my head too. First Officer Next is what it's called, the Microsoft Flight Simulator version. So, of course, even First Officer Next, add-ons like that can have issues in new sim update betas. There's no guarantee that this will just work straight away. Add-ons may have issues whilst doing a sim update beta. So it's going to be a slow transition. It will be nice now to have eventually, when everything's ironed out, a good base payware airliner in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Because like I said, for me, wanting to fly airliners on VATSIM, there's not really been a great choice. You really wouldn't want to take any of the MSFS airliners on VATSIM using AI or some dodgy autopilot modes that, you don't really have control over because it's a default crappy aircraft. That's not what I want to do. It's too much of a faff. It's too painful. It's too much like flying Microsoft for the sake of flying Microsoft just to say I'm flying Microsoft, right? You don't need to do it. Just fly P3D, fly PMDG, you have a much better time, okay? But now we're actually getting a payware airliner in Microsoft that is one that we know that is a good airplane, a solid airplane, and we will be able to access this. That will be good because for the first time I will be able to legitimately say to someone who wants to do, airliner flying, yeah, you can get Microsoft, you can get the PMDG, get TFM, maybe get First Officer, whatever, and off you go. You can fly it. Again, that's not to say P3D is going to go away. There are lots of aircraft on P3D that Microsoft doesn't yet have, and there's less of a. You've got to remember there's less of a gulf from a blind person flying the PMDG 737 in P3D to flying it in 2020. Because although it's nice to fly it in 2020, obviously the visual aspect isn't so much of a pull. So, and I don't really think from what I've heard that the sounds are all that much different in P3D to Microsoft. In some ways I prefer the P3D PMDG sounds. In other ways I prefer the PMDG ones in 2020. But there's not that much of a gulf. So it's not, it's not going to be like, we're not absolutely desperate to fly the thing in Microsoft, but it will just mean that when we can, it's another option, right? It's another thing we can recommend, and it's always good to have competition. So no, I won't be switching to Microsoft. No, P3D hasn't gotten any less important for me at the moment, but it's a good step forward. We have to acknowledge when there's good steps forward, and Microsoft has made some in the past week. And this simulator, whether we like it or not, is probably going to be the future in years to come, right? Not in the foreseeable future, but in years to come, purely because Lockheed Martin don't really have as much of a market to compete with Microsoft. Developers know if they sell an add-on on the Microsoft marketplace, they're going to get more pull than if they sell it for P3D, because P3D you just need to buy so many more add-ons out of the box to make it look remotely like Microsoft, and it still won't. So ultimately, support for P3D will, I believe, slowly drain away, but it's not going to be an overnight thing, and that's good for us blind flight simulator pilots because it gives us time to take things slow and organically move into Microsoft instead of just being pitched in there with a simulator that's sort of half-baked, which it still kind of is for us. So that's what I think about it. And the good thing is, from a TFM perspective, because the SDKs appear to be the same, when changes are made in the P3D version, they'll be reflected in the Microsoft version and vice versa. So that's great because it means that, there's not going to be one group of people saying, oh, you're leaving my simulator out or whatever. It should be reflected. So that, I think, is a really positive thing. Anyway, that's Microsoft out of the way. The only other thing is to say that CTP is on Saturday, and they said Friday, then don't know why to be on Friday. Saturday. If you do have a slot, remember this week you will have to confirm it. I'm guessing you'll get an email about that, but just bear that in mind. You'll have to go on and confirm it. The slot trading system is now open, but this slot lottery is over. So I would guess that slots that are released will suddenly become available probably later this week. So if you're still looking to get one, you might be able to grab one. I will personally be doing Seattle to Amsterdam with some of the BVI virtual crew. It will not be streamed because I am using a laptop at the moment, away from my usual simming PC. So this thing doesn't have the power to stream it. There may be some snippets that we record or that someone else records for me and that we put up on the Blind Flight Simmer channel. But really, we want to relax. I mean, it's a 10-hour flight-ish anyway, so I wouldn't really be streaming it regardless. But in my opinion, this is what it's all about. It's the biggest FATSIM event of the year. And you can't get much more involved and realistic than this. And it's going to be great, I think. So, really looking forward to that. It's going to be really fun. And other than that, as I said, there is a TFM blog post. Keep an eye out on there if you want to read about it. And we will see you in the next video. So have a great week.